there's a kind of quiet that only exists inside your own walls. Not the kind that feels empty or dull, but a quiet that feels like exhaling after holding your breath all day. It's that moment when you notice the hum of an appliance, the soft ticking of a clock, and you realize, for once, nothing is pulling you to be anywhere else. It isn't loneliness, it's relief. And while some people don't understand it, for others, staying home isn't an escape from life. It's the only place where they actually feel alive. Outside, in the noise of comparison, pressure, expectations, and endless social performance, they lose track of themselves. Inside, they finally reconnect. Sometimes this comfort traces back to childhood, classrooms, buses, crowded hallways, places where everything felt loud and emotionally cluttered. For some kids, those environments felt like obstacle courses, where you had to raise your voice to be heard, adjust your personality to be accepted, and smile even when you didn't feel okay. So they built an inner world, gentler, slower, more forgiving, and home became more of a sanctuary than a setting. Psychologists often say, people who love being at home are highly sensitive to stimuli. Their minds filter the world intensely. Bright lights feel harsher. Loud spaces drain them. Crowded conversations overwhelm them. So their home isn't avoidance, it's regulation. It's the one place where their nervous system whispers, "You can come back to yourself here." But the pull toward home isn't only sensory, it's emotional. It's spiritual even. Home is the place where the social self, the version that knows when to laugh, what to say, how to play along, can dissolve. What remains is the unfiltered, unperformed self. You can spend an entire day surrounded by people and feel invisible, yet be alone in your room with a warm drink and finally feel seen by yourself. That's the quiet intimacy of solitude. Society tends to glamorize constant motion. Being busy, loud, and always on the go is celebrated. Stillness is treated like a flaw. Silence is viewed as something to fix. But there's strength in those who can sit with themselves, unbothered, because they've realized fulfillment isn't always in the noise, it's often in the pauses. There's a saying, if you don't go within, you go without. For people who prefer home, going inward isn't hiding. It's realignment. It's how they understand their emotions, process overstimulation, and stay grounded in who they truly are. When you're constantly surrounded by people, your identity shifts subtly depending on who's watching. You become a slightly different version of yourself for each audience. But when you're home, the only person you answer to is the one already inside your head. And while solitude doesn't eliminate the need for connection, everyone needs meaningful bonds. People who enjoy being home often form deeper relationships. They avoid the shallow ones. They value connections where silence isn't awkward, where presence matters more than performance. Studies on solitude consistently show something interesting. People who spend intentional time alone often score higher on creativity and emotional depth. Not because they're inherently gifted, but because they've created space to think. When you're alone, you can hear your thoughts clearly. They aren't competing with the noise of the world. That's when insights appear. Healing happens quietly, and clarity begins forming in the spaces between distractions. Think about your biggest realizations. They didn't happen at a party or in a crowded room. They happened in the shower, on a quiet walk, or late at night when everything else went still. Home gives your mind room to breathe. Ironically, many people who love staying home feel guilty about it. Social media amplifies this guilt. Constant images of outings, events, and smiling faces create the illusion that life only happens out there. But that's not true. Everyone is chasing peace, and peace doesn't look the same for everyone. Humans have always needed a retreat. Ancient monks sought solitude in mountains. Writers escaped into cabins. Today, people create small sanctuaries in apartments, filled with soft lights, plants, or music. The instinct is the same: return to stillness after exposure to chaos. Home becomes the modern sanctuary. Scientifically, your home is a low-threat environment. When you're relaxed, your body reduces stress hormones. Your guard collapses, and the emotions you've been holding down finally rise. This is why people cry at home without knowing why. It's why they suddenly feel overwhelmed or deeply relieved. It's healing disguised as quiet. Yet some people criticize homebodies with lines like, "You should get out more," or "You're wasting your 20s." What they don't understand is that staying home doesn't mean stagnation. Some of the most transformative growth happens privately: reading, writing, thinking, dreaming. These are internal revolutions that don't need witnesses. People who prefer home aren't avoiding the world, they're preparing for it, restoring themselves so they can show up authentically later. Routines play a big role too. Predictability lowers anxiety. Knowing where things are, having consistent rituals, whether it's lighting a candle or brewing the same morning coffee, becomes a way of telling your mind, "This is safe." In a society obsessed with productivity and constant visibility, choosing stillness becomes a quiet form of rebellion. Homebodies prove that meaning doesn't always come from movement. Sometimes it comes from noticing the gentle rhythm of your own life. Those who stay home tend to have rich inner landscapes. When your mind isn't flooded with noise, your imagination expands. You notice beauty in tiny things: the pattern of light on the wall, the sound of distant laughter, the sway of shadows at dusk. It's a slower, subtler happiness, one that doesn't require an audience. To some people, silence feels like emptiness. But to those who love home, silence feels like being enough. There's a paradox about homebodies. They're often seen as detached, but in reality, they feel everything intensely. They absorb emotions, atmospheres, and subtleties others overlook. When the external world becomes overwhelming, they retreat not out of fear, but out of self-preservation. You can often understand a homebody by looking at their space. Some homes glow with light and warmth, others are soft and dim with calming textures. Each home becomes a mirror, reflecting the emotional world of the person who inhabits it. The dreamers create comfort. The thinkers create structure. The sensitive build warmth. Solitude also enhances originality, empathy, and self-trust. When you're alone, your thoughts aren't shaped by how others might judge them. They unfold honestly. That's why so many artists and thinkers gravitate towards solitude. They're not escaping life, they're trying to feel it more deeply. At home, people begin understanding they don't need external validation to exist meaningfully. Time spent alone builds inner steadiness. It shifts the focus from applause to authenticity. But solitude isn't always soft. When distractions fade, buried thoughts rise. That's why not everyone enjoys being alone. But those who embrace the process learn emotional maturity, sitting with thoughts instead of running from them. People who enjoy staying home usually have strong self-awareness. They know who they are without needing constant input. They're less likely to bend under pressure or chase approval. Years of listening to themselves teaches them to distinguish their own voice from the background noise of society. Loneliness does happen, but it's not the shallow kind. It's a longing for connection that feels genuine rather than forced. Homebodies don't want crowds. They want depth. They want people who make them feel understood, not drained. And when they love wholeheartedly, because they understand energy is precious. However, not all home-seeking comes from peace. Sometimes it comes from exhaustion, emotional fatigue from being misunderstood or stretched too thin. For those people, home becomes a place to put down the heavy armor they wear in public. It's emotional decompression. The moment you walk inside, and everything you've been carrying silently drops. People who absorb others' emotions tend to need more time alone. Their empathy works like a sponge. It gathers everything. Home becomes a space to wring themselves out, slowly returning to balance. Staying home is more than preference. It's a rhythm of personality. Some people thrive on interaction, movement, and stimulation. Others are wired for introspection, consistency, and quiet. Both are valid, but society often celebrates only one, leaving the quieter personalities feeling flawed when they're not. In truth, they're simply tuned differently, and that's where their beauty lies. The world needs both, those who speak and those who reflect, those who move fast and those who notice deeply. In many ways, it's the observers who bring meaning to the chaos, turning noise into understanding and stillness into wisdom. This is why many creators feel most alive at home. They transform solitude into insight. They convert quiet into expression. Even for people who aren't artists, the same psychology applies. Home is where emotional processing happens. It's where you collapse into your truest self after being too many versions of yourself in public. Everyone needs a place where the armor comes off. Some find it in people. Others find it in silence and familiar walls. It takes courage to choose stillness in a world addicted to spectacle. But in that choice, something sacred emerges. Authenticity. When you stop performing, life becomes something you participate in gently instead of fighting through forcefully. Those who love staying home aren't withdrawing from life. They're experiencing it differently, deeply, internally, thoughtfully. They're noticing things others rush past. They're rebuilding themselves quietly. And when they do step back into the world, they bring with them something rare, a calm presence that steadies everything around them. Once you've found peace in solitude, you stop searching for it in chaos. You stop expecting the outside world to make you feel at home. You carry home with you. So if you're someone who prefers staying in, don't apologize. Peace isn't laziness. Stillness isn't waste. Comfort isn't complacency. You're not falling behind. You're tuning in. You're doing the kind of inner work that can't be posted, measured, or performed. And that work shapes everything. Because when life gets loud and people start searching for meaning, it's often the quiet ones who already found it. In the rhythm of ordinary days, in the warmth of familiar spaces, in the sound of their own heartbeat, echoing softly in a room that finally feels like theirs. Home isn't just four walls. It's a reflection of peace earned slowly. A sanctuary you build from self-awareness, stillness, and honesty. It's where you meet yourself again, over and over, until you finally realize you were never hiding.